Hey,
welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality
You can talk
Group
over
and
if you
Andy
need
Moore
to.
Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one!
Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor.
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three in.
He hit it.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. It is Tuesday. Indiana Sports Beat is on the way. Kevin Brockway, K-Bro, is with us in the house today, as always. Brought to you by our good friends at Cabello Restaurante, located on the square in Bloomington. Cabello is located right there in the heart of Bloomington. You experience the taste and traditions of the Italian heritage. So make sure you stop by. K-Bro, we'll get K-Bro out there. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to wait to make the announcement, but I think we have someone that's going to be there this weekend, but we'll wait and confirm that today. How's it going, K-Bro?
It is going wonderful. What a comeback win by the Mets last night. How about that, huh?
Meet
Down
the
to
Mets. Beat
down.
the Mets.
Meet the Mets. Down to their last strike, 2-1, and they score 4 more runs in the 9th inning and pull it out 5-2.
Down to the last strike. How's it get? I can't get any more exciting than that.
Yes, over the Cardinals. But that was a good win last night, and it's also it's NFL draft week. How about that? Not maybe Micah McFadden's dreams will come true, or maybe Peyton Hendershot. You might see one of those two get picked, or Ty Freifogel, perhaps one of those three. But a couple of Indiana football players that are going to try to get drafted, and it's probably been one a year for the last couple of years,
Something like that.
Yeah. So they've managed to do that. So you got that coming up obviously this week, big week with the NFL draft, and I guess Sean Mcneil visited over the weekend. Any info, any update on that, Jim?
What on what?
On Mcneil visiting over the weekend?
Oh,
Kid from West Virginia.
Well, yeah, he committed to Ohio State yesterday.
Oh, geez.
He committed to Ohio State yesterday.
So didn't get the shooter. What does that mean?
Dexter Dennis.
Yeah, we will see. He doesn't quite have the gaudy numbers. He is a good defender, though.
Well, that's the thing. It's a different. He's not. Yeah. That's what I've talked about. I'm like, you know what? I never. You can never say they shouldn't grab someone because they're a great defensive person, but they're pretty damn good defensively already. But they are devoid of shooting and a particular part of offense. That I'm thinking, why are you not just focusing on that? There's a reason, obviously. I'm not the one being paid $4 million a year to do it. So obviously there are people smarter than me. Then you got the question, if they bring him in, Kevin, they're going to be one over the scholarship level.
Yeah, depending on what Trace Jackson Davis is. Here's the thing. You bring in Sean Mcneil over Little 500 weekend. That's supposed to be the best weekend of the year in Bloomington. How can you get him to commit over Little 500 weekend? What does that say? What's going on there?
That's surprising. Especially committing so quickly to another school immediately after the visit. I think that I said yesterday, I think that happened last year or a couple of years ago with DJ Carton. Same exact thing. He visits IU, then he immediately commits to Ohio State. It's a curious thing. I wouldn't be surprised if NIL played a part in this. Ohio State got money, brother. Trust me. They got money.
A lot of schools do, and it's different, and it's going to be, but Indiana should have more money, right? It's a basketball state, but did you see the Nigel Pack deal over the weekend? go to Miami.
800,000 over 2 years and a car. How about that?
And a car. Yes. Yeah. That was, former Lords North guy, former Indiana All-Star.
What kind of car is he getting?
I don't know exactly what kind of car he's getting, but
I'd have went all in, baby. I'm like, I'm getting a high-end SUV or something. Now he's going to get a sports car because that was just an old man thing I just said with getting the SUV. But yeah, hey, get whatever you can get, man. Good for Nigel Pack. Yeah, congratulations to him.
Well, he doesn't go to Purdue either, which I think is good for Indiana because he's a player. And, it obviously that's been a huge issue for Purdue in the point guard position.
Why wouldn't Indiana recruit him hard? I mean, I know he played point guard, but he averaged, didn't he average like 18 points a game?
Yeah. I remember when I watched him as an Indiana All-Star my first year here, I'm like, why hasn't Indiana recruited him harder? And I think it was because of, the size. And I think a lot of these coaches don't like 6'1" guards because of switching defense, which, I don't know. I think if you can play, you can play. But smaller guards, some coaches just, I don't think Mike Woodson likes smaller guards.
Here's some bitter truth. Ohio State's got a better track record over the last couple of years than Indiana basketball. So it says makes sense to choose that from anything at all.
Don't you think Indiana's on the come though? Based on what they did last year, and
but that doesn't matter
coming in,
dude. But some guys, 1 year guys like that, they don't care. They look at what they think may be the best position for them for one season. And if that involves the check, the NIL portion of that, that's easy for them. These guys are almost like mercenaries. They're coming in and I don't mean that, but they're coming in for 1 year. There's no connection to the school. You're not like, they're from there. It's in essence like a mercenary. Just a free agency, and you coming in for a year and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. And Indiana's had their share of guys that they've gotten in the transfer portal, and some have worked out and some haven't, obviously. But I think that this was a guy that you really want to get for the shooting. I think that's the thing. And again, that's going to be the bugaboo. You know what I mean? You're not going to have that knockdown perimeter shooter, that guy that can hit 3 or 4 threes a game that you can count on.
And that is the thing that Indiana has to have. I don't give a damn how good they get defensively. You've got to score the ball, or you're going to struggle to win games 52-50 every week.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they have just not put a full court press on shooters only, to chase shooters only. But they haven't done that. Dexter Dennis, he's not that. So it's not for me to. Well, it is for me to question. I just did question it, but I just wonder. I don't understand why. It doesn't make sense to me, but it doesn't have to. I'm not the guy that they have to please, right?
And again, they could say that they have Miller Kopp, but Miller Kopp obviously was a disappointment. And
they can say it all they want. They won't get them very far.
But right now players want to go where they get exposed. Right now, that IU is one of the best national brands in the country. They get plenty of exposure here.
Yeah,
that doesn't. You know what I mean? They're going to be playing Kansas. They're going to be playing. The games are on national. IU has for as much struggles as IU has. They were what? When they played Syracuse, that was the highest rated game in the Big Ten ACC Challenge.
Indiana is always the team that the networks want to put on. They wanted Indiana to be on that CBS spectacular that Michigan State's been a part of. They wanted Indiana because Indiana's the name. There was another event like that, but Indiana also couldn't play in it because of the Crossroads Classic. So getting out of that has allowed them to do things like go play Kansas.
Yeah, exactly. And So you talk about exposure. I mean, you can make the argument exposure in March, but they finally broke through in March this year. They made the tournament, and you've got guys that are coming that will probably, lift them to that level as well, hopefully. And you could probably sell Sean Mcneil on the fact that, hey, look, you're the missing piece. We could not only make the tournament with you, we can make a deep run with you, a much deeper run.
Yep. Jason said Indiana needed Mcneil, but OSU could have sold him on more playing time. There are going to be a lot of guys next year on this Indiana team. The rotation, it's got to go deeper next year, or some guys are not going to play. And we know how Woody likes to go with he likes to go with the older guys, and B, he likes to use some weird rotations, mass rotations. He's possibly can do that next year with the talent that he has now.
Yeah. Well, you take like the wing position, and one guy that we haven't really talked about, and I've kind of forgotten about, but a guy that has a potential to make a jump.
Tamar Bates.
Tamar Bates. Yeah, that's the guy, and that's going to be, and if he can make a jump, then you have a very interesting starting five. And especially if Trace comes back, if you have Trace Race, Tamar Bates at the 3, and obviously your point guard being your 2 point guards being Xavier and Reynaud. I mean, that's an interesting starting 5, and that could be a productive starting 5 if Tamar Bates makes that jump.
Yeah, he needs to have a tremendous summer. He really does. Not for Indiana, for himself, for his own career. Geronimo announced yesterday that he's returning. Jordan Geronimo.
It's another guy.
Yeah. He also needs to have a good summer. He has got to improve his offense. He has to be able to, hang on to the ball better, first of all. Too many turnovers for Jordan. But he's also got to get a little bit better handle on the ball so he can create his own shot. That's not something he can do at the moment. And he needs to work on his shot just to make it a little bit better. He's got a nice jump shot.
And that's why, that's why you can't play him at the 3 position, which is a shame, because if you had him at the 3, then all of a sudden you'd have an interesting front line. I remember they tried it once. I think it was a Northwestern game, and man, they were good on the boards when they did that. I mean, imagine if you thought about that, you had that kind of like Trace Race, Geronimo front line, the size and the athleticism. You could, a couple of years ago, they kind of had that, right, with Justin Smith and Trace, right, together.
I had this conversation yesterday. Who starts at the 5 if Trace Jackson-Davis is gone?
I think Race does. Yeah,
that's what I said. I say you move Race down to the 5 and maybe Malik Reynaud at the 4.
Or Jordan at the 4, Geronimo at the 4.
Mm.
Yeah. I think you would start Geronimo based on the experience and work Reynaud in a 3 post rotation.
Probably, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jordan Geronimo needs a great summer of improvement. So let's see. Mike says, we keep hearing about how great his Indiana's incoming freshmen are, and they never see those fruits. Tamar is another that disappointed last year. It's hard to get excited year after year. Well, you got to give freshmen a year, man. That's a tough jump. I'm telling you, you cannot understand the jump from high school to Division I basketball, top level Division I basketball. The speed, everything is different. You're going against guys that are older than you. When he was in high school, he was the baddest guy all the time on the floor. Well, now he's on the floor with other guys that were the baddest guys too. And it's just a different deal. That's what I said. He just needs to have a great summer and improve. But yeah, he definitely has to step up for Indiana. There's no question. He was too much of a, you bring expectations. He was very high rated, so they're expecting a lot from him.
Some freshmen are better than others. Some can adapt quicker than others. It just depends. Some of it's a mindset. Some of it's also, you're dealing with the physicality of the Big Ten. I think that's an issue. And I think we saw that last year with those 2 Michigan kids, Caleb Houston and Diabate. But a lot of times for the talented freshmen, it usually clicks by February or March. So, I don't know. I think guys like Hood, Shafino, and Reynaud, maybe in November and December, there might be some struggles now that, there might be some easy non-conference games where they put up good numbers because they're facing kind of cupcakes here and there. And, IU's schedule has a few of those, but then you also face a team like Kansas. You're going to face a team in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. I'm sure that's going to be tough. And then you get into Big Ten play. You play a couple of those Big Ten games in December. And then you get hardened a little bit, and we'll see how they go. But you would hope that some of these freshmen, and I mean, tomorrow we saw it was kind of weird because he lit up in the non-conference games, and then he went through a pretty bad slump. And then February and March, he started to figure out a little bit here and there. He had the one really good game at Michigan State, if you remember, where he played pretty well, even though IU lost. And so he's a guy that I think has potential to grow as a sophomore. And that's when you usually see your biggest leap if a player is going to be good, is between his freshman and sophomore year.
Absolutely. We got to take a quick break. Got plenty more and lots to get to here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from the WOW Club. It's totally free app to sign up for. Start earning WOW rewards today. Members earn exclusive discounts, dining dollars to spend, and more sent directly to your mobile app or your mobile phone. When you sign up for the WOW Club, you immediately start earning discounts, free food, and even VIP invites to special events. The WOW Club is available in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. WOW Club is the only mobile app you need. Go sign up for it. You can places like Cabello that on the square, but you can also order online from BB's Market. Get those great steaks. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington.
Good morning, Mike. Oh, there it is, the mysterious mute Mike DeCourcy. I don't know why it's been doing that with him so much recently.
Better?
There we go. I'm assuming you just, left and came back in and nothing
Yep,
changed.
that's all I did.
That's so weird. It's happened with you a lot, and I think there's one other guest we have on weekly that it's been happening to recently. I'm not sure what's causing it, but at least it's a simple fix. I still hear Jim singing the Mets song, Kevin.
How about that? Yeah. That was quite the comeback last night. Meanwhile, my Nets got swept by the Celtics. That was terrible. No heart from the Nets at all. The Celtics look good, though. I mean, that coach, Idoa, he's done a great job with them. I mean, he gets them to really guard hard which is hard to get NBA players to do. But I mean, Marcus Smart is a great defensive player. NBA Defensive Player of the Year. Remembered him at Oklahoma State?
Yep.
Did he get some controversy at Oklahoma State? What did he do or something? There was something.
It was something with the fan in the end zone stands that he got into it with because the fan did something and he reacted.
Yeah.
I think it was at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Mike.
What's going on, Jim?
How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I cannot complain. It's a pretty day. It's not raining.
Well, it's It's not raining here either, but it's not exactly a beautiful day.
All right, here we go.
Basketball, football, and plenty more. Simply go to thehoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, brought to you by our good friends at Courtroom Sports Grill down in Bedford. And don't forget, coming up, their Crawfest, the 4th annual Crawfest, sponsored by the Courtroom Sports Bar and Grill, is back. Join us for the Crawfest May 13th and 14th at the Harp Commons in downtown Bedford. This year's event headlined by country superstar and Hoosier native Clayton Anderson. So come on down, and all you can eat and all that good stuff. You ever been to a crawfish boil, Mike?
I have not. When I was a kid, there was a creek in woods behind our house that had lots of.
Catch them? Did you catch them?
Yeah, and we called them crayfish then.
Yeah, I did too. Yes.
Before crawfish became the accepted lingo, we used to do that. Yeah, we used to catch them a little bit, and it was there were salamanders and there were crayfish in the creek. Yes,
I had the same creek, Mike. It's amazing. It is amazing, but it isn't funny. It's funny you say that because that just takes me instantly back to being a kid and the things that you can do. A creek. All right. Well, what can I do here? And there's just all kinds of stuff you got. You just listed a couple. I mean, frogs. There's just so much. Well, I'm just saying there's just so much stuff to do. I mean, it's crazy. But that's funny. It takes me back to being a kid there, chasing those little crawfish. And why are they allowed to change it to crawfish when it was actually crayfish?
I don't know. I think Louisiana is like the capital of that, and they're the ones who turned it into a delicacy, so they should be able to call it whatever they want, right?
Yeah. What do they call it?
Crawfish.
Yeah, that's what it is, because that's what it is. I don't know these. I think it's laziness. I think it's the same thing with certain accents. It's laziness of not enunciating the word. But who knows?
We'll have to look into the etymology of crawfish versus crayfish before we do our next show.
Yeah, Brian says, go to Tulane sometime. Best crawfest ever held. Well, there you go. I bet it is. It's down here in the heart of Louisiana. How could it not be the best? Yep, Jesse. Yeah, that's so funny. I mean, just
so now is Jesse a Pittsburgher? Because Jesse calls it a crick, and that's a very Western Pennsylvania thing. I tried to pronounce it correctly, but when I was a kid, it was crick.
Well, I've always said creek, but I was around people they called it that, and I thought it was wrong because I'm like, man, as dumb as I am, at least I did see it written in books in places and how it was spelled, and I'm like, I'm not getting crick out of that. I said it looks like creek, so I continue just saying creek. But my dad was from deep in the country. And we'd go down there to visit family, and it was damn sure crick. Everything.
There you go. So it wasn't
not
just
at the crick.
Pennsylvania.
Oh no. It's a country thing, I think.
Okay.
Down at the crick, boy. Go down there to the crick and get some water. I remember his aunt. This is no joke. Their water came from the spring out of the creek, or the creek that was running through there. They had a spring, and that's what their drinking water came from.
Wow.
And they had a long handle gourd that they cut to half the end off it and used it for a dipper.
Oh man.
I'm not kidding. The bucket of water sat on the counter and the gourd handle sat above it, and you need a drink, you'd walk in there and get you a dip of water. I mean, they were pure country, man. I can think of that, and it just makes me laugh. I'm like, I can't believe I got to experience that. Really, it was pretty cool. But yeah, you talk about straight up country. Man, never seen anything like it. It still blows my mind. What's new with you, Mr. Mike?
Well, we had what happened over the weekend. We had Nigel Pack $800,000 with a name image and likeness. I don't know exactly why he has $800,000 worth of value, but look, he's a fine player. But I said this on somebody's show yesterday. If you walked into a gym like at IU, or let's say Xavier or South Carolina, and you went into and said, okay, name one guy who plays for Kansas State, like in the middle of the season. So you're in the gym like in February, and so you're talking to hoops people. Name one guy at Kansas State. I guarantee you would have had a hell of a time finding somebody who knew anybody who played for Kansas State. Now one of their players is worth $800,000 over 2 years. I also came up with the math on this. That is literally 20 seasons in the G League. How about that? Like at the current rate, you got to play 20 seasons in the G League to make that much money over 2 years. So more power to him. I'm not sure whether that's worth the investment, so to speak, for the person / company that put that money into him. I don't know that you're going to get $800,000 worth of value out of that, but it certainly was a significant development in current college basketball.
We'll have to ask Kevin about that. Not to interrupt Chris Lewis, 100 yards to the outhouse, but will he make it? That same family, yes, there was the outhouse that was about 100 yards away, and I'm not kidding. Kevin, you're Mr. Miami. You're a Miami guy. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think he's certainly going to help the team for one thing, which is good. I mean, it's a good get for Jim Larrañaga, but I kind of agree with Mike. It's like, what does this say about NIL and what it's supposed to be compared to, how it's being implemented and how it's being used?
But didn't we already know that?
Miami is not
question that. I mean,
Miami is not a college basketball hotbed. It never has been. Although, Larrañaga has done a great job. I mean, they're coming off an Elite Eight appearance. He's taken them to 2 Sweet 16s. But in the ACC, playing in the ACC, it's an afterthought. It's always been a football school. It always will be a football school. They didn't bring basketball back until 1986. So they've really had a lot of, when I went to school there, it was just, 5 or 6 years. Leonard Hamilton was just starting out. I remember they had a 1-17 team in the Big East, the first year there. So, I mean, they have an uphill climb, but I just think that it's interesting that, certainly $800,000 in Miami. I mean, he'll make good use of that money. It's a playground down there, but is it really that college basketball hotbed? And is he really worth that? I think that's a legitimate question.
He doesn't care because he's got it, baby. And he's going to be tooling around Miami in that new sports car and that big wad of cash. That sounds like there's no trouble there.
Let's not make any assumptions.
No, I'm just, man, if that was me, yeah, it's over.
I think that was a significant development because it does point out that, it reiterates the mistakes that were made by the NCAA over the last decade or so, that they needed to get ahead of this so that things like this wouldn't happen. I think we're all, I think both of you guys and most of the people that I encounter in college athletics are all in favor of athletes being able to, first of all, run their own businesses on the internet through their social media accounts, that sort of thing. No more nonsense with like Darnell Autry gets offered a role in a movie and struggles to be able to fulfill it because, you're trading on your name, image, and likeness. I think that happened with a player at Michigan State as well, who was a aspiring actor and struggled to be able to take a role because of something like that. No more nonsense like that. And as well as, if I'm a car dealer and I think I can help my business by, getting the quarterback from State U or the point guard or the best player on the women's championship women's team or whatever, come do a signing or an appearance at my dealership to bring traffic into the showroom. And maybe if that goes well, maybe do a radio ad. And if that goes well, maybe do a television ad with that athlete as well, et cetera. I think we're all in favor of that. But this consortium idea that, a bunch of boosters get together and form this, nonprofit and the money goes to the players through that. I don't think any of us really thought that that's the direction it should go, where where you can have the ability to effectively buy players just in a legal sense. And I don't think any of us wanted that. And the NCAA could have prevented all that by getting ahead of this issue back when the O'Bannon case, once it got the green light to go to court. I wrote this about a year ago, whenever the Alston case came up, when the decision on that came around. I wrote an article about this. I spoke to Sonny Vaccaro. They could have gotten ahead of this, and they chose instead to keep going to court and getting their tails kicked. And now we're in this circumstance where basically there are no rules relative to NIL. The only rule that exists now is that the school can't hire players. It's still an extracurricular activity. It's not a professional activity. It's the only real rule that exists now. And there should have been some regulations around name, image, and likeness that now can't exist.
Yeah, I mean, but I think most of us knew once the rule came. I'm like going, oh hell, this is going to be crazy, and because there was nothing to stop it. It was always, you're looking at it like, well, there you go. You can just basically pay players now. But I agree with you. The schools fought this for 1,000 years. And now they're doing everything the opposite. They're bending over to get the NIL set up and this, that, and the other thing. They have themselves to blame. There's no question about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The association failed. And that means the member schools failed. I don't know who it was. I don't think I've ever been able to figure out who it was that, I think I even asked a question similar to this at the Final Four, and it never really quite figured out, like, who made the calls to go forward with the Alston case, taking it all to the Supreme Court? Who made the call to not negotiate a settlement with the O'Bannon plaintiffs? Because they had that opportunity. I was told specifically that the O'Bannon plaintiffs did not want to go to court. They wanted to sit down with the NCAA and say, look, this is what the future needs to be. Now, whether their exact version of the future would have prevailed, again, that all goes into negotiations of a settlement. But that's what they wanted. And the NCAA said, no, we'll go to court. And what happened? Loss. And the Alston same, I don't know whether the Alston plaintiffs, I can't say because I didn't talk to them, but I don't know whether they made the same offer. But by that time, you've already been beaten in O'Bannon. Now you want to get beaten again and make it worse. And they did, and they made it worse. The thing that always bugged me about the Alston case was they were arguing against the idea of unlimited academic aid. Well, what could be wrong with that? It's academic aid. They were arguing against that. So, there wasn't a good decision made relative to that in the last decade. And now that's why we have this situation where it is now. Not just name, image, and likeness in its purest form, but this other thing with the consortiums that are being put together by the schools that wanted all along to be able to, and were all along, funneling money to players to get them to come play for them. And then also by the schools that are afraid that if they don't do this, and it is now legal, if they don't do this, then all the schools that are doing it will prevail. So, okay, well, we have to do this now. I compare it to performance enhancing drugs, where the first steroid user uses it, all of a sudden he or she is faster, stronger, better. Well, if I don't use this, I'm gonna be losing every time to that person. So then I guess I have to do it. It's the same concept, and unfortunately, that's where we are because of failures of NCAA, whether it's the hierarchy or the member schools not pushing for this. They clearly missed the vision of the future, that this could have been done perfectly with the exact, with NIL being exactly what it should be and not what it is now.
Kevin, the NCAA has held a monopoly. They held a monopoly for so long over that, basically controlling everything, not giving the players anything. And I wonder, you just mentioned it, Mike, I wonder where the true driving force was. Was it the people at the NCAA, which for the listeners, the NCAA is basically all the schools. The school presidents tell the NCAA what they want. But the NCAA also has people in-house as well. And I don't know how much Mark Emmert played a part into it. He sure seemed convicted every time he talked about it. So I'm like, I think he's on the side of not paying players because he certainly seemed to have that conviction. I don't know if he was just carrying that from the schools or if that was his true belief, because it sure seemed like it, Kevin. So that was just they were so used to winning everything and having that monopoly.
Well, don't forget Mark Emmert was a former NCAA president, at Washington, before he took on this job. So obviously he sided with what, they felt like was the academic mission of the school. And they felt like, money would bastardize that. But, it's, there were tons of contradictions, throughout this whole 20 or 30 year era that's led up to this in terms of, what was acceptable and what wasn't. And it got to the point where I think people, in the revenue generating sports, got angry, and we're fed up, parents and players and so forth. And as the schools got greedier and greedier, as the apparel deals came in, as the networks formed, and as we saw billions of dollars being generated by these conferences, I think public perception changed, and that's why we're at the point where we are now, where basically we've got this free for all, and we've got kids signing for 8 figures. But if the market supports it, I guess more power to them. But we'll see what the return on investment is going to be on some of these deals.
We got to take a break. When we come back, I'm about to talk about Nasir Cunningham. He signed with the top player in next year in the 2024 class, signs with Overtime Elite. We'll talk about that and a lot more when we come back. Don't forget our good friends, Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. And don't forget about the Crawfish Fest going on sponsored by the Courtroom Sports Bar and Grill. That is May 13th and 14th at the Harp Commons in downtown Bedford. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington, Nasir Cunningham, he's doing it in a weird way. He's going, but he's not taking the money.
Right. We could talk about it on the air. I've got a theory about that.
Because I'm curious. Because I'm like, okay, I guess just for training, because they've got some great coaches there. But oh well, looking forward to hearing about that. I mean, he's just tired of classroom, I'm going to guess.
No, if he wants to maintain, and he does, if he wants to maintain eligibility, he still has to finish high school. So he'll probably go to a local high school and then train with them, or he'll go.
Why not go to an IMG or Montverde?
Well, that's the discussion, right?
Well, I don't get that.
And I think we have an answer for that.
Okay, perfect. I don't have the answer. That's why we have Mike DeCourcy, baby, because he's got the answers.
Excuse me.
How about our Reds, man?
How about what?
Oh, my goodness. What a mess.
Meet the Reds. Meet the Reds. Too bad the Reds never had a song.
Yeah, it's called Loser by Beck.
Oh,
kill me. That sounds like the Reds. Yes.
Oh my God! Look at John coming out of the weeds with a harpoon, man. Sniper. John, come out of the weeds with a sniper. I'm a loser.
So why don't you kill me?
Jim's doing the Monkeys version of the.
I'm a loser. Man, I remember watching that or seeing that show on TV when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. It took me. It was a long time before I realized or found out that they were not a real band. They were just created for that show,
right.
But they sold music.
Right. They wrote good songs.
It was funny.
There's some really good songs.
Well, they were funny and they could all sing.
Yes.
I mean, that's really unusual to have all that. I mean, that's a performance, baby. Spring night. Let's kick summer off early. For more information, go to the Courtroom Sports Grill Facebook page.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means? K-Bro, Kevin Brockway with us from CNH High Papers, and the great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Fox, and BTN. The top player in the 2024 class, Nasir Cunningham, is headed to Overtime Elite, but he's maintaining his eligibility. He's not taking the money. And I don't understand, why not go to Montverde or an IMG Academy there in Florida? You're going to get excellent training there. And since he's not taking the money to maintain his eligibility, that's in case he wants to go to college, then why not go to one of those places that actually has so many relationships with the big time schools that you could also go get NIL deals through. So I don't understand that move.
Well, I think it's explained by this. First of all, those who initially reacted to this missed that part that you're talking about. It really comes down to what he's doing, comes down to a choice of Overtime Elite over Montverde, LaLu, IMG, etc. That's really what he's deciding between. Those types of programs where you play high level competition constantly, where you get high level coaching constantly, and then you also become eligible for college.
But it does not have a school, though, right? There's no school.
This does not have a school. So he'll have to either go to a local school in the Atlanta area or go to a completely online type situation, which wouldn't be surprising as well. He can do whatever works into his schedule. And
home school too, right? That's an option, yeah.
Yeah, but he's not at home anymore. So,
hey, how would you like to be the head? How would you like to be the head coach of the high school basketball team that had him in your school, had Nasir Cunningham in your school, but couldn't play for you?
Well, that's the way it goes now, really. My high school, which has been horrible at basketball forever. I mean, when my brother went to college and played NAIA ball in 1980 or so, became like the first player in a decade from my high school to play any level of college basketball. It didn't change much from then on. There were just a few who went on. So then a few years ago, Trey Mitchell, who is in the portal now, who has played at Texas and UMass, grew up in my neighborhood and went to my high school for his sophomore year. And then, wow, hey, you got one of the top players in the country, the top 50, 60 players in the country at my high school, Elizabeth Forward, in Western Pennsylvania. Well, he was gone. He went to prep school in Connecticut. That's what happens now. So in this case, Nasir Cunningham, it was almost inevitable he would leave. And so he chooses Overtime Elite. Why Overtime Elite over Montverde or IMG or LaLu or whatever? Well, they're talking about NIL. Now we're seeing states at the high school level that are starting to open that door. to do that because they just, they see that there's like no reason to stop it. For one, very few athletes are going to get anything in that regard. Two, why fight the fight? What's the point? The state associations don't get anything out of fighting it. So just let it go, right? It's more of a hassle than it is worth. And so for him at Overtime Elite, he doesn't have to wait for New Jersey to pass that law or to allow that rule if they haven't already, or Florida, whatever. He can just go to Overtime Elite where he's not bound by a state association, and he can get, if there's whatever name, image, and likeness money there is out there for him to get, he can get it. There's no restraint for him. And so he can do that. And they are certainly positioned. I'm still doubtful, dubious of their training ability because when they call it a league, you can't have a league with 3 teams. I'm sorry, that's not a league. That's an open gym.
Hey, maybe they can add that team from Ohio. Oh, that was a football team.
Yes. Bishop Sycamore. Absolutely.
Sycamore. Yeah.
But so that I'm not sold that that's the best training necessarily. But I don't think it's necessarily bad for them either, because they do have pros. They do have professional coaches in there: Kevin Ollie, Dave Lato, etc. So I think I like that he's keeping open the door to college, because I still believe that college basketball is the best preparation you can have for the NBA level. And we're seeing that develop in various series in the NBA playoffs. Guys stepping forward like Desmond Bane did toward the end of last week for the Grizzlies. We're seeing Karl Anthony Towns step forward like he in that same series in, I guess it was game 3 or game 4. We're seeing that those guys are really well trained to handle the pressure of the NBA playoffs, because the one game scenario in college creates a level of pressure that doesn't exist anywhere else in basketball. And I really believe that it helps those guys succeed and survive when they get into the NBA playoffs.
I think that I also remember reading that Overtime Elite has an extensive reach in the NIL marketplace. So I think this was mainly about money.
Yeah, which is, again, I don't have a problem with it as long as you're keeping open the best option available to you to become a player. Because the short-term money that you can make as a collegian or as a high school player, whatever, is nothing compared to what you get with a second NBA contract. Look at Jalen Brunson, the truck that's backing up into his cul-de-sac right now, and what's going to be dumped on him when this season ends and he becomes a free agent. It's going to be astronomical, and that's still the goal. Still should be the goal. And that's why I wrote about Shaden Sharp, the Kentucky player, or erstwhile Kentucky sort of pseudo player, who never played for the Wildcats, even though he was on their roster this past spring. You look at the guys who completely skipped the step, who didn't play anywhere out of high school, that tried to find a way around G League, international, college. And there really isn't a lot of great success there. They're still in the league. Darius Baisley, some other guys. There's one who played for the Knicks this past year. They're still in the league, and they're still, they still have jobs, and they're going to stay in the league for a while because they're good players. But there aren't any real great success stories at this point, with the possible exception of Anthony Simons, who's at Portland, who averaged 17 points this year, sort of broke out after C.J. McCollum left Portland. But most of them are just okay.
Brandon Jennings, was he? Did he have a good career?
Brandon played. He went to Italy and played. I'm talking about the guys who did internships or hit out in prep school. Thon Maker's another one. Thon Maker's the best example. He was the number 10 overall pick in 2016. He's played 200 some games, never averaged double figures, spent most of this past year in the G League. If he goes to college and becomes a real player, maybe he's still in the league. Maybe he's making, maybe he's on his second contract making $25 million a year. Can't say. But Miles Turner, he's making big money. Domantas Sabonis, he's making big money. Those guys went and got good. They didn't just try to get drafted.
Kevin?
No, I agree. Billy Donovan used to talk about that. It's always about the second contract, not the first contract. You know what I mean? That so many people, they look at that quick money, but that's where the real money is. If you can get that second NBA contract after 4 years. So there is something to be said to, develop, and not just develop as a player, but develop as a young man, develop as a person, because, you're talking about, 17, 18-year-old kids being thrust into this professional situation. There's a lot you have to learn. I mean, you go all the way back to the Kwame Brown situation and what he had to go through back in the early 2000s, and that culture shock that he had to go through. There were a lot of stories about him, just having to adapt to the regular world. And, you're this 18-year-old kid and you can't really go out drinking with the guys or doing everything else. You're very isolated and you're very lonely because, you're so young and you don't fit in.
As well, I think one of the things that college basketball provides is the step up from I am so good that no one can touch me in high school to I've got to work my tail off to get minutes on this team, Kentucky, Duke, wherever. I've got to work my tail off to be good enough that coach leaves me in the game. And then you step up from there. Look, college guys work hard, but the guys who make it in the NBA it's almost maniacal. I have been in the gym for workouts, summer workouts, when with the money they have, they could be like sitting there with their feet up and a fruity drink on the stand next to them. And instead, in a gym, they are just going at it for hours to keep themselves in shape. And I'm not just talking about taking jump shots and stuff. I'm talking about working their bodies, working on skills. These are the best players in the world, and the work they put in is crazy. And the college gets you to, they get you to understand, like, you're going to have to work really hard. And then you get to the NBA level, and then you're like, it's not as big a shock because now you've worked your body. You've understood that you have to go from just being much more physically talented than your peers to working as hard as your new set of peers just to stay relevant, and then get drafted, where in order to be great, the level of work you have to put in is something that you've never imagined. But if you go straight from high school where you've never worked, and then all of a sudden you're in this next level, it's such a far leap for you that it's often that players fall between the cracks.
And if people think that it was crazy and whatever, the AAU, all the AAU circuits, man, it's just going to get crazier because more kids are going to want to do that because they need that to try to get to this NIL, this apple. There's that apple. They see that apple on the tree, but it's not a low hanging fruit. They have to make some effort. And man, there's a lot of money out there. Damn, I wish they have more opportunities than the average person to make some serious money. And that's great for them, but it blows my mind. I mean, Nigel Pack, this dude is basically almost a millionaire. And it's like, wow, if he's smart, he could seriously that could last a long time, but it's probably not going to have to. But it's buy himself a home, have a home, and have that out of the way. I mean, how many people have that opportunity?
Well, it's a great opportunity for him. And now it's about being smart with the money. And this is where the American educational system is not the best. They don't teach you much
there's nothing been set up. I mean, I haven't heard anything thought about. Here's a program that we've got for that very thing to protect, because there's going to be people preying on these guys. Hey, let me be your financial advisor. Let me put your money here and blah blah blah. I think there's a lot to be said for teaching more personal finance in schools.
with when I got out of college, I had no idea. 401ks were just starting then, and I had no idea how they worked, what they were, and of course this was when they were less popular. They were, like I said, they were just starting them as a replacement for pension systems in a lot of places. But no one ever taught me that stuff in school, and I've been out of school for a long time, and it's still in most places not taught or under taught. It's something that really could be helpful. Both at the high school and college level that no one's ever endeavored to really push. It's unfortunate because it's important to everybody now with the way most pension systems work. It's really important to everybody.
Yes, because I probably wouldn't have listened had I been told. You gave me. I'm serious. I'm being honest. You have to have direction. You have to have that mind going in and. Like someone I've been on, my parents moved when I was 17 and I stayed because I didn't want to go to North Carolina, but you miss out on stuff. You miss out on the little things like you're talking about, being smarter with this, doing this. And hopefully we don't see players getting in trouble with this, causing issues, but that's just an ancillary thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think that I think that they can be taught to do well with their money. It's one of the things that Duke did at the beginning of last summer when they brought their freshmen in. They put them through a lot of different sort of seminars, for lack of a better term, and I believe personal finance was one of them. And I think that's really helpful. For young athletes, because they're gonna encounter money now, whether it's at the name, image, likeness level in college or when they enter the professional careers. They're going to encounter money it comes at them faster than it probably will at any point in their lives. So it's really smart to be able to have some idea of what to do with it all, so that you can have it when you're my age, say. And not just so you can enjoy it when you're 23.
I guarantee it. Well, Mike, what do you have coming up next?
Well, I'm still working on the piece we were talking about last week, and our editors decided to push it back a week.
All right. So the secret remains.
So
the secret remains.
I'm going to keep it quiet for another week. It'll probably appear when we can talk about it next week. But I did do that column on Shaden Sharp yesterday that I think people will find interesting because it does touch everything relative to the draft, relative to what's the best way to prepare, et cetera. I think that people would find that interesting if they haven't already gotten a chance to read it.
I wish we had more time because there's an all-time NFL quarterback draft ranking the best quarterbacks, and Peyton Manning was number one. And I'm like, how you?
No. If you're talking about Bill Bender's piece, it's the best player taken at each spot in the draft. So,
okay.
So, and it's a great piece. People will really like it. Bill Bender did it, ranking the best quarterback at each pick in the draft, 1 through 32.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this.
It begins with Peyton Manning as the best quarterback ever taken number 1 overall, which I think is an accurate choice. And it goes all the way through to 32. So very interesting thing that he did. I really liked it, and I retweeted it this morning if you follow me.
Who is the worst quarterback ever taken at number 1? That's a question.
He lists pretty much everybody on there, so you can find him there. I'd say Baker Mayfield's in the conversation, but he's probably not the guy.
Jamarcus Russell, maybe, or wasn't he?
That would be a good one. Yeah, Jamarcus Russell would be below Baker Mayfield. I think you probably have it there.
My favorite is they have the picture that goes with it, and they have a photo of Steve Mcneil from the Houston Oilers. Love that helmet. Got the big oil derrick up there. I miss that helmet, man. I miss the Oilers.
Houston Oilers, right?
I missed it. Why did the Texans not pick up that name? That just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. Maybe they would have had to pay for it. Because remember when Adams moved the team to Tennessee, he took the brand with him, although he didn't use it. It still belongs to him. So I don't
That's
know.
like didn't Charlotte got the Hornets back from New Orleans, which was great. That's how it should be that way, man. It really should be. But see, that would require Indianapolis to not be the Colts. They would be something else. Maybe they would have to be the Ravens. The Indianapolis Ravens.
I always thought the Indianapolis Racers would be a good name because of the 500. The Indianapolis Racers. I would like that. Yeah.
I would bet that there's been a team of some sort with that name through the years. Mike, I cannot thank you enough, brother. I hope you have a great day and a great rest of your week.
We'll see you next week. Thanks, Kev. Thanks, Jim.
Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Make sure you pick up his pieces there and give him a follow on Twitter as well. Kevin Brockway with me. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio after this. Brought to you by our good friends at Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. Could be the difference between you getting the home you want and not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda. There you go. My man Pete got it on it. The hockey team. Dave's on it as well. Oh, that's right. Wayne frickin' Gretzky played there. How about that? Oh, you still have an old jersey? Oh, my God. Dude.
That's probably worth something.
Well, I would love to have that in a frame hung up on the damn wall. That is something. Oh, man, I missed this, Pete. Sorry.
I just called up the biggest NFL draft bus, by the way. We can have fun with that.
How about the Major League umpire Hernandez? Is there a bunch of stuff being talked about him or something? I missed that. Must have been umping Pete's team. Who is Pete's team now? Since he is left.
Fan?
That's what I'm imagining. Since he has moved from. You know what? He's a Cubs fan. I remember
the Cubbies.
I think. But we went to a White Sox game once. Me, him, his brother, and his dad. But I think that was just to see Michael Jordan. He was taking BP, batting practice, in the old Comiskey Park. How about that?
Hey, what was the player y'all were talking about, the overtime elite guy?
His name is Nasir Cunningham.
Gotcha.
Ross has got it framed in his bedroom. Put it in your will for me, Ross. Yeah, see, I said that before. I knew. I remember. It's Cubs. Oh, Hernandez is the guy who called out Schwarber and ejected him. Well, I've seen Schwarber get pissed off before. I mean, that doesn't mean he's right, but was he wrong? I didn't see oh, that's right.
It was off the strike zone. It was like a good inch off the corner. Good couple of inches off the corner.
How many teams has Schwarber been on in the past year?
Nationals,
Red
Sox and Phillies, yeah.
Is there a reason he keeps moving around? I mean, I know it's just trades, but like, is he not valuable or what's the?
Well, he's obviously valuable. Everywhere he goes, he's starting.
That's what
he went
contained anywhere.
When Washington, got out of contention at the trade deadline, they traded him to the Red Sox. So that made sense, He was a guy that the Red Sox picked up for the pennant push. That's why they traded for him. But then I think he was a free agent this year, and then he signed with the Phillies. So
Cheryl Sizemore gets you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday, Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming at you. Brought to you by our good friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. If you're down in southern Indiana, stop by and see our good buddy Dr. J. You need that championship smile, and give it to you. Kevin, let's see. Pete talks about, and someone else mentioned this too, the umpire Hernandez has been just missing calls, man. He says I'm going to put the damn thing up. They track missed calls, and most umps average like 5 a game. He averages like 18 lately. Woo! Man, I need to get this. I'm going to try to send this to you, John, but I've seen Schwarber get pissed before. He's pretty animated when he does, man. And he's a big boy.
We got that clipper, though.
Well, not yet. I've got to send it to him. I'll do that. But
okay.
I was hoping you could talk while I would do that.
Okay. Well, no, I don't know. 18, I thought was an exaggeration. I saw on MLB Network, they said that he missed 6 calls, but he his strike zone was all over the place that Sunday night game. And, it was a 1-0 game. The batters could never really get into any kind of read or rhythm in terms of working a count. But, you're seeing a lot of these guys. I mean, Schwarber was trying to work out a walk to lead off the inning. He's facing a tough lefty in Josh Hader. And the pitch was a good inch or two outside the strike zone, and he's ticked off, and he has a right to be because he's trying to start a rally for his team.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait to get this video sent to John because this is great. That's close. But, yeah, it's fun to watch this. I can't wait to get that. I'm not going to sit here and watch it.
Yeah.
But that's great TV to me.
Yeah, that's great. And he's, an umpire is supposed to be invisible, right? The best umpires, but Angel Hernandez has made himself a story, which is the worst thing you can do as an official, right? Is to be a part of the conversation. And I think that, there are a lot of players that are and I think a lot of people are making the point that if you and I were this bad at our jobs, we'd be fired, right? And yet Angel Hernandez keeps on getting chances, and he's actually gotten into the postseason a few times, but they're supposed to grade these umpires. So it's kind of befuddling to me how he keeps getting these chances based on his track record. But there's some awareness now towards him in terms of his strike zone and his ability. And he's definitely pitcher friendly. Let's put it that way.
It does crack me up when you get to see this video. You can tell. I've seen managers do it. Players usually don't do this. This is usually what managers do when they're arguing with an umpire and they're being real demonstrative with their hands. It's like they're doing that so they could tell the fans what they're bitching about to the umpire. Because the umpire's 4 feet away, he can hear you. But they are being over dramatic with their hands really big. That cracks me up. I'm like, and that tells me you're purposely trying to gather support. And I'm like, and that tells, and that's premeditated. I'm like, man, I understand going off, but when you're able to have the presence of mind to go off and try to get the fans involved, I'm not about that, man.
You remember in college basketball, remember Danny Hurley, Connecticut, he got ejected for doing that, for inciting the fans. Apparently there's on the basketball side, there's a rule that if you're a coach and you incite fans against officials, you can be ejected. So that's interesting. But I think in baseball, it's a little bit of a different animal with regards to that. But I feel certainly, listen, Schwarber had a gripe. He had a case. It was a 1-0 game for a reason, and that's because none of those batters could get a read on the strike zone because Angel Hernandez was all over the place. And that's what's frustrating a lot of these hitters was that there was, no – I mean, some people are saying, he was bad for both sides, but when you have no consistency whatsoever and you're up there and you're just kind of, and you're trying to work the count, I mean, it just gets to be very frustrating.
I think John has the video. He's popped in. Is that what that means, John?
Here it comes. Called strike 3, and Schwarber is thrown out of the game, and he had zero issue with getting thrown out, making it very clear You've missed him inside, outside, up and down. Kyle Schwarber thrown out after being.
That was a very, very quick ejection because the announcer was telling you what just happened, and he was thrown out before he finished telling you what happened. Yeah, that was just pretty funny. Great. That's great TV, though. I mean, I know for the folks listening on the radio, they couldn't see that, but it was just, it's funny and great TV, but it's not funny to them.
And if you looked at the box and where that pitch was, it's about
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
It was about an inch or two out of the strike zone, which
Kevin didn't get it. Yes, terrible call.
Yeah,
but nothing will ever replace Don Dinkinger. I mean, it will go down. I'll only know his name because of him making the worst call in the history of Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And there is no question to me that it's the worst call because it was egregiously bad. I've never seen a call that bad. And this was back before they had replay, so they couldn't overturn it. This was the Cardinals and whom? Do you remember?
Kansas City, 1985 World Series, yeah.
And it cost the Cardinals the World Series ultimately, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it started that rally in the sixth inning where in the ninth inning of Game 6, and then it kind of bleeded over to Game 7 where St. Louis just had no momentum and no composure whatsoever, and got blown out by the Royals in Game 7. But it was a critical call, and it's something it's amazing. It's kind of the same thing with journalists, right? With stories like you could probably be remembered. You could write a million positive stories or things or features or whatever, and the one controversial or the one bad story you're going to be remembered by. And it's the same thing with umpires. Like Don Dinkinger probably had a fairly stellar career. He wouldn't have been a World Series manager if he wasn't, but he's going to be remembered for that one call.
But that was horrible. I don't understand how you can be that bad. It's easy to call first base unless it's because I used to umpire when I was, but you use the sound as well as your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're trained. Yeah.
You listen for the ball hitting the glove, and you're watching the bag, and you've got all that. This call was how it was like 2 full strides at first base. We're not talking about like his foot was coming down the base. He was still in stride to get to first base.
Oh, was it that, or I thought it was a dive into first? Nope, I want to call that play up.
We'll have to pull it up, but I think it was he was just still running, and he was a full stride away from the base, from what I remember. We'll have to look it up. We'll have to get John to look that up. But I think does that mean we have to go to break, John, or you have that already?
No, we can go to break.
All right, we'll do that. But when we come back, and I do want to talk about this later after Chronic Hoosiers up next, but after we have Chronic, we'll talk about this. Great point by Pete. When does baseball go to an electronic calling? I mean, hell, they might as well. I know a lot of purists are against that, but would you rather have crap like Hernandez? Hey, we're back with more. Chronic Hoosier joins us next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Stick around. We're back with that right after these messages.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington. Sorry, Michael. Chronic, what up, my brother?
What's going on, gentlemen?
You know what? How was your little 500?
Survived it. Another one in the books. It's a little different when you're stuck at home with the kids while your wife's out of town.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, you know what, though? It was a safer place to be. We'll talk about this, but it was a safer place to be, apparently.
Yeah, the crazy part, the night that the shootings happened, my kid, at least my daughter, my oldest, was on Kirkwood like a little less than 2 hours prior to that.
How old is she?
Freshman, but they were out seeing a show at the Buzzkirk.
I didn't realize she was that old. Damn, I didn't realize she was that old. I thought your kids were small.
Shit, dude. State just mailed her a driver's permit.
Don't worry. College tuition is coming tomorrow. You think I'm kidding? I've never seen it. I look back and I'm like, oh, and everybody does. People don't listen when they tell you it goes faster than you can imagine. Well, she's a freshman in college now, and yesterday she was 10.
Every time we sit down with our financial planner, it's never enough money, and it's wild. There's a very good chance my daughter probably gets a scholarship. She's a great student. My son, man, it's 50-50. All I know is that money's probably not going to be enough. It could be tuition, it could be bail. We'll see, but I'm just going to keep throwing money in that account like it's never going to be enough.
Yeah, my financial advisor said, I'm sorry, just quit. It's over for you, baby. Got some big NIL dollars going out, Chronic.
Welcome to the future, man.
I know people are going nuts about it, but I'm like going, what did you expect? This is what it was going to be. Yeah, it's a 180.
Well, I think if it keeps him out of the Big Ten, it's probably good news for Indiana, right? That he didn't go to Ohio State or Purdue,
Oh, you talking about Nigel Pack?
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to have good players wherever you are. I mean,
I think, if you would have, putting Nigel Pack on Purdue would have made him a lot more formidable. I don't know who they're going to get as a point guard that's much better than that at this stage.
All right, here we go.
Deals. Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Tuesday from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda deal. Chronic Hoosier joins us now. How are you, sir?
Glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Love having you. How was your Little Five weekend?
Yeah, it's pretty subdued this year by Little Five standards, but that's what happens when you get stuck at home batching it with the kids while the missus is out of town on a girls trip. So it was a good time, but it was not your traditional Little Five by either my or most people's standards. It was yet again another wild Little Five, unfortunately. Seems like every year there's always some knuckleheads that really forget how to act when they come down here and make it a bad time for everybody. So fortunately, everybody survived this Little Five. It's just sad to see the incidents that kind of marred the weekend on Friday night.
Yeah, Chronic's talking about there was a shooting at a restaurant, I think.
Multiple shootings. There's one in the club at Kalau. There was one in the alley a couple blocks away.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and they're not sure if those were related. And then there was a separate incident that was quasi-related to the shootings where somebody over on campus had observed some individuals behaving strangely that thought they were involved in the downtown shootings that ended up being unrelated, but nonetheless resulted in a police chase that went from vehicle to foot and resulted in the recovery of a couple guns in possession of felons. So, or at least allegedly. So yet again, it was just one of those things where it's sad to see it happen, but fortunate that everybody survived it okay.
Yeah, man. When I was in school, it was just fun. You didn't have to worry about that crap. But unfortunately, like you said, always knuckleheads. It doesn't matter whether it's the Derby. They have that issue. People coming in from out of town. When you have mass events. I mean, Little Five is not the Derby or the Indianapolis 500, but it doesn't matter. It's extremely popular, and Bloomington swells about 3 times its size during that weekend, or it did back when I was in school.
Yeah, it just about doubles, I believe, and it's a good time. It's great to see everybody out. It couldn't have been a better weekend from a weather standpoint. Unfortunately, it kind of overshadowed the race a little bit. First time since 2019, they were able to have fans in the stands and go out there and support the men's and the women's riders. And for all the notoriety of the weekend as a party time. It's really unbelievable if you've ever got to meet any riders or any of the teams and just all the sacrifices they make to get to the race, to qualify, to compete. Some of the best athletes on campus, quite frankly. I mean, these kids have incredible endurance and strength, and it's cool. You talk about amateur athletics. I mean, that's literally what we're doing, talking about here. This is honestly the true definition of amateur collegiate athletics. Obviously not NCAA sanctioned sport, but people just going out there and doing it for the love of the sport. And their teams and their fans and their families. So it was really cool knowing some families of some riders who were deprived of the opportunity to see their kids compete, their friends compete in the last year, and having it canceled the year prior to get out there and fully enjoy it. What is obviously one of the most sacred traditions in Indiana in the spring here. So glad that's back. Glad we're through it, and glad we're less than 2 weeks away from graduation and the official start of B-Town summer. So I'm in my groove.
2 weeks from graduation. That's crazy. That means it's finals time. Indiana landed Malik Reynaud recently, of course, from Montverde Academy, teammate of Jalen Hood-Schifino. But yet they are still recruiting. They brought in the kid that just committed, Mcneil, committed to Ohio State immediately after visiting Indiana. But they also have Dexter Dennis that was in on a visit. But they're full right now. If Trace Jackson Davis comes back, I think he comes back, Chronic. Let's say he does, and they add that player. What do you think happens? I've talked about my what I think that they could do, but they would have to do something.
Yeah, obviously they're if Trace comes back and they do add one more transfer or just another commitment, no matter where it comes from, obviously they'd be one over the scholarship limit of 13. It's tough to say. It's really tough to say, and this is one of the less savory parts of the game right now, because somebody's probably through choice or other circumstances, in the event that happens, going to go find a new home next year. And from what we've seen, at least publicly, there doesn't appear a willing departure on the roster, but that's not to say there's not stuff happening behind the scenes where maybe that choice isn't already clear to those involved, more intimately with it. But it's going to be
Trace Jackson could have told the staff that, hey, I'm leaving regardless. We just don't know that. I'll play this scenario out for you. This is my theory of what could happen. Anthony Leal relinquishing a scholarship for a year to be a walk-on, but given NIL money to cover that. His mother works at IU. He gets a tremendous break on tuition as it is. So he makes money already, and he's still there.
Yeah, both his parents work at IU.
Oh, and there you go. So, and he's going to play as much as he's going to play. So it wouldn't change his playing time. And he'd still be here. I don't know if he would accept that for a year, but that's just a scenario that I thought of trying to create a spot without somebody leaving.
And I'm not by any means going to pretend to be an expert in the area, but I think that may run afoul of scholarship rules. Perhaps, I don't know. But it's not an easy choice, and that's not to say that it's going to be a hard choice at the same time. Right now, you've got to keep in mind in the portal era, with NIL and everything else going on, and the enticements and the inducements, you have to assume that everybody is contemplating their options at all times. Which honestly, it's hard to say you blame them, but also recognizing there's conversations happening behind the scenes, outside of the school, the program. Other coaches, other programs, they're in touch with their AAU. It's such a network where communications happen, whether directly or indirectly, where guys are trying to figure out where the best spot's going to be, and if you're a guy that's sitting on the end of the bench, down on the rotation, maybe you're looking for greener pastures. Maybe something in your life, your personal life changed, again, not engaging in speculation here. But Tamar Bates just became a father. I have no idea where his child even resides. There's things going on though outside of Cook Hall that are very much impacting these decisions, and it would be probably pure speculation to say. I think one of the easiest things to do though when you're trying to guess, look at the depth chart, look at the minutes these guys pulled, look at the depth ahead of them going into next season's roster. Usually it's clearer than what it would appear as you're sitting there trying to figure out who's going to be the next guy out.
Yeah, and that's why I suggested Anthony, thinking, he's the hometown kid. He would rather stay here regardless. I don't know, but that's just a scenario. Or Logan Duncombe, if he does not show improvement, there's just very little wiggle room. But obviously there has to be some, or they wouldn't be making these contacts, Kevin. They're still out talking to these guys and bringing them in on visits. Obviously, Dexter Dennis just finished his visit up, and they're waiting a decision from him.
Yeah, and I do think that we're near the end of the semester, right? It's probably going to be at the end of this week, so there'll be some conversations with regards to that. May 1st is the transfer portal deadline. So if something develops with anyone remaining on the roster, I would think that it would happen probably by the end of this week. So it could happen fairly soon. But these things, like Chronic said, I think they tend to work themselves out. And if Indiana is in a position to add, they're probably going to have to subtract, given the numbers, if you want to have the latitude to bring Trace back, which appears to be. And if you take a look at how deep the front court is with Jordan Geronimo coming back, and if Trace does come back, that would lead you to believe that somebody in the front court could look at those numbers and say, hey, look, it's going to be really hard for me to play again here. And maybe look elsewhere.
Yeah, Chronic Pat Kraft now just named the athletic director at Penn State, an IU alum. We've kind of watched him just keep moving up the ladder from there in Philadelphia, Temple, and then from Temple on to Boston, and then now to Penn State. That's a serious job there, man, and it's against Indiana.
Yeah, Pat's an IU alum. I believe he's got 3 degrees from IU, his bachelor's, his master's, as well as his PhD. He was formerly on staff. I believe he was the head of marketing for the IU athletic department for a while. That's two former administrators from that same era. Julie Cromer, now the AD over at Ohio University as well, who I believe she was the senior women's administrator within the IU athletics back in the late aughts, if memory serves. But it's a meteoric rise for Pat to find himself from an associate AD to now the AD of one of the bigger schools in the country, quite honestly. I'm not sure what their total revenues are, but Penn State's absolutely a behemoth in the world of college athletics, particularly the football department. And I think what's fascinating about the hire is, we talk about programs in transition trying to find their footing in these modern eras, or the evolving eras of college athletic. Penn State is one of those that obviously they have struggled since they joined the Big Ten from a football, competitiveness standpoint, over par since they made the move. They're certainly ascendant right now, but it's a big ship to steer, and pretty big vote of confidence in Pat and his abilities to take over at this time in Penn State's history. So, congrats to Pat. He certainly earned it. One of the sharper guys I think I've ever talked to in the world of college athletics. So, well deserving for him.
And nothing against Scott. I think he's a great AD for Indiana. Scott Dolson does a great job, was a great pick, was probably the smart pick, but Pat Kraft also was available. And it's this kind of, I look at this at Indiana. You got an Indiana guy who has all that experience as an AD, and yet that's not who they go with. I just look at the hires they made over the years. And like in basketball, that's kind of where the problem allowed. But Scott was a great pick. So it was just bad timing, I guess. Unfortunate for Indiana, because they could have had that, Kevin. I mean, and that's a lot of experience, obviously. If Penn State wants him, you know he's got to be good. But to move like he did, he does a great job everywhere he goes, and they improve.
Temple to Boston College, now to Penn State. So he's worked at an ACC school. He's going to get his opportunity at a Big Ten program. But I think the hire with Scott was probably about keeping the continuity, obviously within the athletic department that they had with Fred Glass before him. And it's worked out pretty. Scott made the tough decision on Archie Miller. And brought in Mike Woodson, and the basketball program.
Scott's done a great job.
Is looking, like I said, like it's on the rise. Unfortunately, football did take a step back though, and baseball is taking a step back. But basketball is what people care about in this state, and obviously, if Woody keeps it going, then some of the other sports that will be forgiven.
Chronic with the NIL and Indiana being a basketball school, football is the engine that drives the trains in college athletics. And like you mentioned, Penn State, they have that 100,000 seat stadium and a great program with it. Michigan State, Ohio State, Wisconsin, yada, yada, Iowa. Indiana doesn't have that. And can the loss of not having that in football, can basketball make that up?
No, basketball alone can't make that up.
Yeah.
But what Indiana does have is Big Ten revenue. And, the way that this conference is structured financially, Indiana is a great example of a maybe not the upper echelon, maybe not even the middle echelon football program that can still compete from a resource standpoint, or at least respectfully compete. And make no mistake, IU will never be able to match or even come close to the neighborhood of the revenue that Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State can generate. But what it does is it has $30-40 million a year, I believe, in BTN revenue coming in.
Yeah, but that gets spread out so much. It goes to so many different places. I mean, Indiana used to have a president that was siphoning off that money as well. But the football program, they don't generate the NIL interest. Well, they haven't, and that's where I'm wondering if this is going to cause more of a gap between Indiana and those four above them in the Big East and the rest of the other teams in the Big Ten. But they don't have that NIL drive, and I don't know how Indiana is going to compete in football with those guys going forward.
You'll probably see that gulf widen. I mean, before the Big Ten Network, it was the facilities arms race, and that was pretty much entirely booster driven. That's what separated Indiana at the time from a lot of those upper echelon programs.
And they're still separated because of that, to be honest with you.
But they've also, they narrowed that gap because of it. You can look at 17th Street. None of that happens for the most part without the advent of the BTN and all the resources that flowed from it. They've completely remade every single facility since that happened. Now, the very same forces that drove that in the prior era are going to drive that gulf that will then widen now, because from a football standpoint, I don't see a lot of boosters willing to pony up, 7 figures, high 6 figures, so that, Indiana football can land a 4 or a 5-star wide receiver, or whatever the position may be. Basketball, that's a different matter, but that's truly in this era, you have to put your money where your mouth is, and you get to do it publicly, above board in the light of day and financial regulations and reporting. So I think you're probably right. You are going to see a chasm open up as it relates to football. But all that being said, the difference now, Indiana at least has a safety net underneath them from a revenue standpoint, where now that the facilities are built, the choice is how much do you invest in staff and your coaches and the assistants and all the way on down the line. And you've seen Indiana willing to engage there at times. You've also seen Indiana lose out at times. Most recently here in the last 12 months, Indiana's had a hard time retaining its football staff. Now, how much of that is strictly income versus opportunities, greater opportunities elsewhere? That's a whole nother matter. But it is a wild and changing time, and Indiana's no different than everybody else. They're going to have to find a way to compete, and in this era, it's very objectively measurable. How much money can you raise to sustain the program?
Yes, because we see in basketball, we know that that's where it's going to go, and with reason. It should be that way.
That's the way markets work.
This is real life. This is, and when I hear people talk about that it's going to cause problems with players, I'm like, BS. That's horse crap. Everybody that says that, I said, do you have a job? Do you make the most money at your company? If you own it, then that's great. But is there not people that make more money than you? There is everywhere that you work, unless you're the owner of the company. There's usually people that make more money than you. That's how it is. That's life. So I don't agree with the top player getting paid more is going to affect the other guys. Well, they have the same opportunity. So,
and the irony of all of this is this is the very same thing most Indiana fans have been complaining about for a full generation, is losing out on players to the bagmen of the SEC or whatever it may be, the Kentuckys, the Kansas, etc. And let's be honest, that's documented. It's very much a fact, a reality that's been happening for decades.
Oh yeah.
Again. Now it's just being done out in the open, and there is no more moral objection to whether or not it's justifiable. It's right to pay players. That's very much their legal right now. That's very much their NCAA rights, and it's kind of an abrupt shifting of gears to go from complaining we lose out all the time to now complaining because we can't pay enough. It's been the case all along. It's just whether or not it's being reported.
Well, and I was just going to mention this, but Ross, we were completely shut out from football this year, from a media standpoint. Kevin, we saw no practices. We didn't get to see the scrimmage. It was a cloak and dagger type of thing. In my opinion, is because they laid the biggest egg in the history of college football last year with the expectations, which should have been met. And it was horrible. They did something that no one else had ever done. They had people believing in Indiana football, and had they had that season, this opening game with Illinois would be sold out. But that's not the case. And Ross said, thought it was. I just don't know why. What was it, Kevin? What do you think the point of that was?
For this spring, you're talking about keeping everything behind closed doors. I think the only explanation I could think that would make sense would be two new coordinators, Walt Bell, the offense. Maybe they want the element of surprise. I'll be curious to see what they do in August as well, if they're going to keep it shut or if we're going to be able to see some things. But that would be my only explanation, would be a little bit of maybe subterfuge there in terms of you have a new offensive coordinator, you have a new system. That's why we're going to shut it down and be private. Not having the spring game, I think, was interesting too. But I think also that also might have something to do with recruiting. The fact that the last time they had a spring game in 2019, what did they have, like 250, 500 people there? I mean, that's used against you in recruiting. So if Indiana fans want a spring football game again, my advice to them would be show up.
Man, they got to hope they show up for the games, the regular games, but winning takes care of that. We've always said that, Chronic. Winning cures pretty much everything. What's up next for you?
I'm not exactly sure right now. We're obviously with basketball completed. Baseball's not giving us a whole lot to talk about. There's not a whole lot going on the Mind Your Banner side right now. I'm just limping towards B-Town summer, if we're being totally honest. I'm ready to put this school year behind us and move on to the warmer weather and get back into lake season down here. But I do want to circle back to the spring football thing. There's nothing to gain from it. And I understand that's bad PR. It's exposure that you're sacrificing. But after the season you just had, literally there's no reason to continue to talk about how bad last year was. Keep the product under wraps till you have something worth talking about.
I agree.
Talking about practice is probably I don't know that there's a whole lot to gain from it, quite frankly. And, more than anything, taking everything from the past and leaving it there, focusing solely on the future is probably in this team's best interest right now. And just eliminating any pressure, because quite honestly, as bad as 2-10 was, what stung the most was the expectations that the season started with. So tamping those down, keeping all that, outside noise out of these guys' ears and just keeping them focused on next season. I think there's only gains to come from that decision.
I agree, brother. Chronic Hoosier, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda, #1 Honda dealer in Bloomington. I hope you have a great rest of your week, brother.
I appreciate it. We'll catch you guys next time.
Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting, what's K-Bro got out?
I'm looking up here. This is interesting. Transfer portal data trends, NCAA releases. We can talk about this a little bit. Last segment.
Where's that?
It was just a link I saw in the NCAA. We even call it I saw it on Twitter. But
well, send it to me.
When are student athletes entering the transfer portal? What are the outcomes? Yeah.
Send it to me so I have it.
All right.
So I can read it as well.
Are you on Twitter right now?
Well, sure.
Okay, I'm gonna put it in your inbox.
Tweeter.
All right. So yes. Massages 1. K-Bro.
Imagine if he changed his Twitter handle to K-Bro.
I think you should. All right. So NCAA research is created. It will also provide context consumer reporting the following: undergraduate transfer trends. Well, the transfer portal is up. So this is just announcing the implementation of this.
No, but if you go on the link, you can see the numbers.
Where's the link? Where it says new dashboard?
NCAA news, yeah. Yep.
No. But is it the new dashboard? Is that the link?
I believe so. I have it called up right now, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And just a heads up, when we come back from break, I'm going to step away for a couple minutes. And Jim, I'll just text you when I'm back in my seat. Just in case you call for something. Want to let you know.
Okie dokie. Football. Not all. FBS men's basketball. God damn it. Not all. I don't want all. It's not letting me pick. I want to pick football and basketball only. No. FBS.
All right, here we go.
This is John, the producer with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you can find complete coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and plenty more. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and that means Kevin Brockway is with us from CNHI Papers. Make sure you give him a follow if you don't, and give me a follow as well on Twitter, please, at Jim Coyle ISB. Don't forget to stop by and see our friends at Southern Stone Restaurant, located at Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. Their roots in limestone with their love of Southern fare created Southern Stone with quality local and organic food as their main focus, working constantly to provide their guests with exceptional dining experiences. Like located at Patterson Rogers, like I said, Southern Stone provides delicious comfort food with a Southern charm. That sounds great, doesn't it?
It sounds nice, yeah.
It's a little warm. You kind of need that. It got cool, man.
Yeah, no, I went for a hike. I went to McCormick State Park over the weekend. It was really nice. Did a little hike on
that's
Saturday.
Funny you say that. I've seen that sign my entire life, and I've never been there.
It was really it was pretty, but it was funny because the person I went with, we lost the path and we literally had to climb up this hillside facing. It was almost like we were freaking rock climbing, but it was a good workout. Like I definitely felt it. Went home and took a nap for 2 hours, and definitely felt the heart pumping from doing that. So that was interesting. But the NCAA transfer portal data just emerged, and had a chance to look at it, and it's some interesting fact and figures. Transfer portal numbers up for we would call it 6,475 in 2021, and 3,092 grad transfers. So almost 10,000 people, almost 10,000 athletes, Division I, II, and III, transferred in 2021. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, and the numbers have jumped in every category for over the previous year. But what is most amazing is in March last year, 498 players went into the transfer portal. This year, double that.
Yep.
I mean, it is. You look at the graph, and it is unbelievable the year-over-year difference. It's crazy. It's the same thing in April. It's double. Last year it was 331. This year 634. Of course, then you get a lot less in after May, June, because the deadline is it May 1st or May 31st? I keep forgetting.
The two most active months are March and April.
And for men's I've only picked men's basketball and football, but
for all it's the same thing. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just amazing to look at these numbers. Part of it is because this is new, Kevin. I think that these numbers will find their level point. It's eventually, but this is new, and it's everybody's out there trying everything. Surely at some point it'll settle down a little bit. I would hope.
You would think.
I mean, but that number this year of March is astonishing. It doubled.
Yeah.
Why in the next year are there twice as many kids wanting to go someplace else? Twice as many.
Maybe NIL has something to do with it too. The NIL inducements.
No, I promise you, there's no doubt about that. That's got to be the biggest. I mean, the reason. When you have a jump like that, I think you're right, because NIL is now. Last year it was new, and now, boy, people are really picking up on it. But I see Indiana fans complain about playing players and all this stuff. And I sent out responded to someone yesterday on Twitter. If people don't think Indiana is doing the same thing now, you're just naive. They're doing it through the NIL, but you are naive if you believe Indiana is not doing the same thing. So why do people complain about those schools paying players? Dude, that's how it is. Indiana has that opportunity. And they're doing it in some ways. The basketball program is going to be, I think it's how they're going to get the basketball program back to the level they want to be at. It's the quickest way to get there without question, because they haven't been able to do it in the past.
And, not only that, this is a basketball state. This is a basketball blue blood. So you would think the resources in the state would be in place and there would be enough donors in place that want this to happen. And I think that's what you've got to, you know what I mean? It's not going to help football. I'll tell you that much. You know what I mean? Because you're going to have Ohio State and Michigan and Pennsylvania, that's where people are passionate about football, but people in the state are passionate about basketball. So you would think that IU with its brand, it would be helpful. So, I mean, this is really their chance to, vault back into being a perennial top 25 program, which is where Indiana should be. I mean, it should be like Kansas. It should be
the
like
Big Ten. The Big Ten needs Indiana to be good. I'm telling you, I don't, this is not about, I'm not a homer. I graduated from there, but I separate my media duties from that. And Indiana they've disappointed the Big Ten. They need to be that bell cow school in basketball. They just need to be. They should be. They've won 5 national championships, but it just hasn't been. And they haven't done crap, in football. See, so when you have both of your major programs that are kind of teetering, man, it makes life difficult.
Yeah, and I look back to I go back to the SEC 10, 15 years ago when Kentucky was kind of in the wilderness between the end of the Tubby era and Billy Gillespie. And Florida was winning national championships, but Florida was still a football school. People didn't care about basketball there as much, even with the winning. And then Calipari came and Kentucky became the bell cow SEC program again. And that helped the league from a basketball standpoint. And I think
Worldwide West.
What?
Worldwide West.
Well, yeah, that too. And but now you've got the NIL money. Now it's above board. And I think for Indiana, this is, like you said, this is kind of the opportunity to, try to go out and get some of the, better players in the country. And they've done that in getting Hood Shafino and Malik Reynaud. And, you would hope if you're an Indiana fan, that trend continues.
Absolutely. And it is working for the basketball program. Like I said, if there's no way that was not a major reason Indiana landed Malik Reynaud. I think Miami was kind of in the driver's seat for him, which after they gave that deal to Nigel Pack that he got, I'm surprised that they didn't land Malik if they wanted him that badly, because that I don't imagine he's getting that he would get that deal in Indiana.
Yeah, but maybe it's also a sign that money isn't everything. Maybe it's also, maybe Malik wanted to play with Jalen Hood Shafino as well, and there was money on the table. Maybe it wasn't as much as Miami, but there was enough on the table that satisfied him. I still think it's not always the end all be all. It certainly helps for sure, but I think you have other factors too. And the other factor too is, again, and we get into this, and I was kind of dumbfounded in the beginning of the show when someone talked about exposure. Where are you ultimately going to get more exposure and love as a basketball player, at Indiana or Miami? I mean, come on, Miami is still a football school. It always has been a football school. It always will be a football school. So even with the success that Jim Larrañaga has had there and getting him to the Elite Eight, you're still going to be overshadowed. Here, you're going to be the big man on campus, and you're probably going to have more outside NIL opportunities. I mean, we saw last year Race Thompson and Rob Finney were on a bank commercial. So you're going to have those opportunities too, I think, as this thing goes on. If Indiana gets really good and gets to be a top 25 program, you're going to have opportunities within the state to film commercials, to do things, to get your name out there through social media, where you're going to be able to create some revenue for yourself as well.
Here's a great number. Scott asked this question. He asked, is it temporary or the new norm? Oh, it's the new norm, man. It's a rule. But listen, here's some numbers for you. 58% of student athletes reported to have enrolled at a new member school. So there's only 58% of them that entered the transfer portal. 5% remove their name for whatever reason. They're assumed to have gone back to their school. 37% Default status for those entered into the transfer portal. Active entrants may still be exploring other options, may have transferred to a non-NCAA school, or may have left the sport. Basically 37% not finding a new home. That's an astonishingly high number.
Oh, yeah, no question. And I think there are a lot of factors that go into that. And some of that, too, is, we've talked about the transfer portal swinging both ways. Maybe they're not wanted anymore at a certain school. And that's a side that people don't want to talk about. Everyone wants to think, well, it's just the player making the decision. It's not always the player making the decision.
Yeah, it's wild. That's a great graph to look at. Holy smokes. What a day it's been. Another fun one. But yeah, it's all about winning, man. Winning cures it all. You said it. IU teaches players the skills to make it to that coveted. Well, they haven't yet. Well, not by a ton, but yeah.
Oladipo, right? Oladipo and Cody Zeller, right? They got.
I think there's 8 players in the league right now, maybe 9.
Yeah.
Man, Jawan Morgan, he worked his butt off to get there. And congratulations to him. Man, thanks a lot. It's another great day, as always. Make sure you're giving Kevin Brockway a follow from CNHI Papers. Big thanks to Chronic Hoosier and Mike DeCourcy as well, John, the producer. I hope you guys are having a great day, and go out and have yourselves a great day. We'll be back tomorrow to do this all over again. And without you guys, though, but big thanks to you all. Without you, we've got no reason to be here. Go out and have yourselves a fun one. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports